Is that price advantage the result of some combination of subsidized endeavors from communists, child labor, and slave labor?
All of the above.
All of the above. So there you go, America. I want you to think about this. Please, as a child of God, as a compassionate human being, do you really want a cheaper product on the shelf that's been subsidized by communists and produced with child labor and slave labor? This is what the Trump administration and some conservatives in Congress are pushing back against.
If there's one thing the Republicans are masters at, it's gaslighting the American public into believing that corporations, billionaires, and other capital owners are not the root cause of the vast majority of our country's problems. When profit is king, there is no room for domestic manufacturing, safe working conditions, a living wage, health care, and other benefits, because the people at the top will always try to squeeze as much as they can out of those below them.
We seek to establish the truth that cheap products produced in abhorrent conditions on foreign soil, subsidized by communism, and produced by child labor and slave labor, not only should they not be available for a cheaper price on our shelf, they shouldn't be available at all on American shelves. In the opinion of some.
Everything Higgins is whining about here is a direct cause of American corporations and capital owners wanting to maximize profits by exploiting cheap labor, raw materials, and a lack of labor protections in places like China.
We not only support the aggressive effort of our executive branch to push back against this worldwide, but particularly with China, we not only support it, we demand it. If we fix this thing, what happens for the next generation of Americans if we restore the industrial base of our sovereign nation?
It's a golden era. I mean, you look at where the cities where we used to produce things, St. Louis, Cleveland, Pittsburgh. I mean, these were some of the richest cities, not just in the country, but in the entire world. We literally called it a gilded era. And what's happened over the last century, and has certainly accelerated over the last 2 decades, is something that's reversible, but we have to get very, very serious about it.
Do you believe a new golden era has been described, is achievable, good sir, if we make the necessary corrections now?
We still have time, but in my opinion, we have to get really serious right now.
Well, Mr. Chairman, we are really serious right now.
Here's the thing. It was only a gilded era for the people wealthy enough to be business owners so they could exploit the working class, racial minorities, immigrants, etc., to enrich themselves, right? And here's another thing that we need to point out. Higgins and the Republican Party, you can see they're trying to posture as pro-worker populists, but in reality, we know this. If you have some sense, they only serve the interest of their donors.
The goal is not simply just the quantity of jobs, but also the quality of these jobs as well. We have to be focused on creating manufacturing jobs and working conditions that allow workers to actually prosper and support their families. This includes rules for better worker safety, increases in OSHA inspections, an emphasis in prevailing wages when awarding federal funding, and working closely with organized labor.
You won't hear anything like what you just heard from Progressive Representative Maxwell Frost come from Higgins or his Republican colleagues, because labor unions and the benefits they provide to workers are antithetical to everything they and their donors represent.
Mr. Hirsch, how does a unionized manufacturing workforce benefit workers and the manufacturing industry?
Thank you for the question. It benefits in several ways. Number one is it attracts a high-skilled workforce with good wages and good compensation, and it retains them so that they can accumulate skills on the job that get fed back into the production process. Number two is it gives the workers from the shop floor who understand the production process the ability to contribute and work with management in designing and more efficiencies and improving production, as well as on innovating in products.
And how does the unionized manufacturing workforce also benefit the people who buy their products and the people in the community as a whole?
Well, this is something that Henry Ford recognized when he started paying a living wage to his workers back at the turn of the previous century. He recognized that for workers and communities to be able to have the consumption to meet the growing production capacity of our economy, they needed to be paid a decent wage. So unions help provide that decent wage. When unions go away, the wages of manufacturing jobs decline. We have been adding manufacturing jobs, but on net, in large part, these are in parts of the country where labor standards are quite low and not very well enforced. So while manufacturing has been expanding, the quality of those jobs has been in decline. Essentially, we're creating American maquiladoras.
Focusing solely on profit makes all of our lives worse, because when you're only concerned about profit, you will do anything to make sure you come out in the green. And that means paying people ridiculous wages, right? Finding different avenues to reduce the cost for you. But then when it comes to the actual product, the actual good that you're selling, you're going to jack the price up, right? Even though you paid very little for it. And who suffers? Everybody, right? The American people, the workers, you know what I'm saying? Everybody except for the corporation, the CEO, everybody else, they suffer, okay? So nobody wins here except for the 1% and the wealthy and these corporations who are making millions upon millions and then billions, right? In a lot of cases. It removes the element of humanity because you're not concerned about what humans are getting paid, right? You're only concerned about what your bottom line is. And that is terrible for the average man and woman, okay?
What do these moves tell us about the quality of manufacturing jobs that Trump policies will create? And the moves I'm talking about are the fact that President Trump has tried to convince workers that his policies will be good for them, while at the same time working aggressively to attack collective bargaining rights and the agencies responsible for protecting worker health and safety.
Well, I think Commerce Secretary Lutnick has given us a clear vision of what these jobs will look like from the Trump administration. He says that Americans should be screwing little screws into iPhones. Now, these are not the jobs of the future that are going to make our country prosperous again.
The Trump administration also is working aggressively to strip Americans of their regulatory protections. This is a problem for all of us as industrial hazards go beyond the factory door and extend to surrounding communities as well. Without these protections in place and enforced, these hazards threaten our drinking water, the air we breathe, the food we eat, and the products we use. Some would have us believe that it's a zero-sum game, that you have to pick one or the other, zero regulation, rolling everything back, or regulation out the wazoo and no one can do anything. But I think with the use of course, technology and a skilled workforce and good workers, we're able to have a world where everybody can thrive. Mr. Hirsch, how do current regulatory protections keep manufacturing workers safe, not just at work, but when they're home as well?
These regulations exist for a reason, and often they're working so well that people have long forgotten the problems that they were put in place to solve. When we take them away, there are going to be problems again. What they will do is shift the costs and the risks from the companies who are doing this to the workers, to the communities where production is happening, to the country as a whole and consumers. People don't want to have polluted water and polluted air in their communities. They don't want their kids playing on a playground where there's toxic chemicals in the air. They don't want to go fishing where there's toxic chemicals in the water. So these regulations play an important role in preventing that. And the way we could be using tariff policy instead of this chaotic and indiscriminate approach, which is disrupting and causing so much uncertainty, is we could be using this to create a regime of high standards, whether it's for worker rights or whether it's for environmental protection, whether it's for stopping the pollution of carbon emissions, putting those costs back onto the goods that are being produced abroad without those protections.
Guys, neither political party is on board with legitimately critiquing and critically thinking about capitalism and the negative effects it's had both in our country and across the world. Because if they actually were on board, we'd be seeing a revamping of our system and how it works. But we know Democrats and Republicans, they benefit from capitalism. Even though the American people, the consumer, they suffer, okay? So this is something that we need to challenge specifically the Democratic Party about. I think it's a lost cause for Republicans, but for the Democrats, this is something we need to hold their feet to the fire when it comes to actually getting change. Because if you want change, tangible change in this country, and it's not going to happen overnight, right? We have to address all the harm that capitalism does to our society, not just here in the States, but also in the world. For Rebel HQ, I'm Chris Williamson. We'll see you next time.